I'd like to welcome on Dr. Sachin Shah from Haleon. He's the Global Medical Partner for Digital Health and Devices. And I'm going to be interviewing him now about influence in the healthcare ecosystem with digital health devices. So, right, of course, in his wheelhouse. Sachin, how are you?
Hi, yeah, very well. Thank you, Jerry. Thank you for having me.
No, it's a pleasure as always, sir. So, of course, I'm sure the audience would love to get to know you a little bit more. Those of you who don't know Sachin very well, so it'd be wonderful to hear what you're up to, where you are, and of course, are you watching the World Cup?
Yeah, so I'm Sachin. I'm the global medical partner for digital health and devices at Haleon. For those who don't know who or what Haleon are, we are the spin-off listed company from GSK that focuses purely on the GSK legacy consumer healthcare business. So I work very closely with an innovation group that specializes on digital disruption, trying to create digital health ecosystems in stress and resilience, women's wellness, and oral health fields. And yes, I am watching the World Cup. So as soon as this finishes on, the TV will be going on.
No, fantastic, awesome. Let's dive into the topic at hand. I think it'd be wonderful to get an idea from you, from your perspective, in terms of what does a digital health ecosystem mean to you?
Yeah, I think it's such a big question, right? I think there are so many different answers, all valid answers. I think what we focused on here at Haleon, and what I'm particularly interested in, is in that sort of end-to-end experience people can get in their healthcare from a digital point of view. So we sort of bucket that into sort of 3 or 4 areas. A digital health ecosystem is, how do you get people engaged and get access to healthcare that they need? Once they've got access to healthcare, how do you get them the right sort of service to get them to a diagnosis, monitoring, or a treatment plan? Once they're on the treatment plan, how do you get them to instill behavior change to help them with their everyday healthcare elements of life that will support the management of whatever symptoms or illnesses they may be going through? And then the last is, how do you keep that person engaged over their lifetime to ensure that healthcare remains at the forefront of their mind, make sure that they're engaged and activated in managing their healthcare, but without disrupting their life to a point where they can't function, say, at work or at social events, or even just in their day-to-day living. So for me, that digital health ecosystem is that complete picture from the moment someone wants to engage in healthcare all the way through basically for the rest of their life. And ideally, I think we talk a lot about preventative medicine. So ideally, getting them to engage even before they need to would be ideal. I think we're probably a bit away from that at the moment. We're still probably a bit more reactive than proactive. But for me, that digital ecosystem is from the moment someone has any slight symptom, issue, concern, thought, getting them in a system which will never let them go and support them for the rest of their journey.
No, I love that. That's such a good kind of really I suppose umbrella overview in terms of kind of that the definition of the ecosystem, but also delving into some of those key points within the journey and stuff. To that point, actually, for you, what are the key areas to actually successfully create an ecosystem like that? And are there areas that are more important than others?
So I think every area is important. I think is the political answer. I think everyone will have different opinions as to which areas are important. So, if one's focusing on cancer, early diagnosis is going to be key for people to get the right treatments earlier, so therefore they have a better chance of survival. And I completely understand that and 100% completely agree with that. For me, dealing with the sort of life cycle of healthcare in an individual, it's all about simplicity for me. So I know there are lots of there's lots of like really, sexy digital health tools out there. We talk about, AI tools in radiology or drug discovery or phenotyping, matching genotyping and stuff like that. But for me, a key success in delivering a digital care health ecosystem is simplicity. So, I think something probably not too sexy, but really important is increasing access to healthcare just by simple means. So how can you get someone to marry up whatever their needs are with a healthcare professional instantaneously through their smartphone? So for example, at Haleon, we've created a product that allows users to access dentists whenever they need, almost like an Uber type service. So they just go on their phone, download the app, type in what they need, and it highlights in an area, oh, this is your dentist, this is a dentist that's got an appointment tomorrow, this is how much it's going to cost you. Even with like remote patient monitoring, we can have, the explosion of wearable data, the things that your smartphone can do, can make monitoring and tracking or even diagnosing diseases really, really accurate and widespread. However, the simple things work just as well. Even just a digital diary for people with migraines, for example, now that we have such advances in normal language processing, can have huge implications for consumers in managing their everyday healthcare. And I think the second thing that's really, really, really important, and to be honest, I think most companies in this space do this, is patient centricity. It's a big, big word. You hear about it a lot, for example, in clinical trial research and digital health in clinical trials, but keeping the consumer, keeping the person at the focus of your plans to build a digital health ecosystem, right? It's a consumer journey or the end user's journey. So making sure you've done loads of qualitative research, market research, ethnographic research into how these people are going to utilize the service, right? You can talk to all the experts in the room, but until you actually talk to the person or the people on the street working their daily lives, telling you their problems and building an ecosystem around them, it's never going to work. And then the last thing is just for me, focusing once again on that everyday healthcare. So, and to be fair, it does sort of impact specific diagnoses or health conditions, but it's the digital health behavior change piece. So leveraging digital health tools in an ecosystem that can drive behavior change to improve people's everyday health that has an impact on their specific health conditions. So that's just your standard stuff like smoking, alcohol, diet, exercise, all the things that we know we should be doing. We struggle to do every day because they're boring. But we really need help driving those extrinsic motivators into intrinsic motivators. And digital health tools provide such a great platform. I think we're on our phones so much all the time, especially in Western society, even in majority of the world, especially in the big country populaces, that if we can just really nail behavior change on a digital device, we can really, really impact people's healthcare.
No, that's I think that's really, really important. There's a couple of really good important points that you brought up in terms of really focusing on things like patient centricity, which I think digital health with medical devices is something that is aimed to make that journey a lot more streamlined and a lot more straightforward, like you mentioned, keeping things a lot more simple and stuff. So I think one of the last points that maybe we want to bring up, especially with your expertise, is understanding like the degrees of evidence that someone or an organization needs to be able to successfully create a sustainable digital health ecosystem. And I know you mentioned also that you're doing within Haleon some clinical product development, and you talked about pathways and stuff, and it'd be nice to also understand how you're incorporating these ecosystems within that too.
Yeah, and I think once again, as I said earlier, I think there's no like one way for clinical product development road mapping, and there's no one way for evidence generation. But what we've done and what I like doing and what's worked is loosely following, I think it's Jennifer Goldsack's DIMES V3 framework, which you can extrapolate into the clinical product development. So what we try to tell our the teams that we work with from like a clinical point of view is incorporate these elements early on. And therefore, when you get to regulatory submission, for example, you have the information there. But more so than just ticking boxes, by doing the following, which I'm about to describe, you're actually building a product that is wanted and proven to work by everybody. So things that I think are really important when developing a digital product are firstly, the existing literature. What is the problem you're trying to solve, and is there actually a problem? And if people started to do research into this problem, and why is it a problem? And then your solution. Has anyone actually done research that your solution is a potential answer to this problem? And if not, brilliant, because then you might have a completely brand new hypothesis. And the next, talking to people, like I mentioned it just before. You have this great idea. You've identified there's a gap in the market. You identify that this is a problem, but do people actually want it? People might not want it. It might be really good to you, and the academic community might love it, or insurance companies might love it, but do people actually want it? So make sure you talk to all the key stakeholders involved in getting this product up and out the door. And then you go through the traditional V3 frameworks of verification, analytical validation, and clinical validation, which I won't spend too much time on. But for me, they're really important in your product development pathway. And if you have those incorporated, and to be fair, I think most people are doing this. I think for me, actually segmenting them into those 3 buckets helps clarify exactly whose responsibility is what, and ensuring that your product is doing exactly what you'll say it's doing is. And then once you have done your, maybe not clinical validation, at least up to analytical validation, and you're at the point of developing an MVP, doing that user research is critical. Sticking your product in front of end users, academic bodies, industry bodies, insurance bodies, if you have the contacts, regulatory bodies, or submission bodies, and just getting honest and open feedback about the pros and cons of your product, and working with KOLs in that space to just reiterate your product. And if you can get certain KOLs in your product lifestyle development pathway, then even better. And then obviously product launch. And then, I think validation is not just a one-time thing, it's a continuous engine, and it keeps on going. So once you've had your product launch, ensuring that you have the right things set in place to continually validate that process over and over and over again. Like apps have versions 1, 1.0, 2.0, 2.5, whatever. That should all be part of your pathway to manage and monitor these products that you've, deployed into your ecosystem.